What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I'm going to be giving you my spoiler thoughts on Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And as you know from my original video, I enjoyed the experience of watching this film, but I acknowledge that it's not actually a very great film. And I'm going to get into my thoughts on what I think of this trilogy as a whole. At the beginning here. I really enjoy Force Awakens, and I enjoy The Last Jedi. I did not hate The Last Jedi, but this movie makes me look back on Last Jedi and feel like I enjoy Last Jedi as its own thing, but I feel like J.J. Abrams should have been allowed to make his own trilogy, because like I said in my first video, non-spoiler video, I feel like J.J. Abrams had an idea for a sequel to Force Awakens and a trilogy capper, like an ending, and he kind of was forced to push them both into the same movie, and it feels like he was forced into this, and he should have been allowed to make his trilogy, and Rian Johnson could have made maybe his own trilogy in the future. I don't know. It's a very messy movie, I'm not going to deny that. But I enjoyed the experience of watching it. So we're going to get into some of the things I talked about, and I've already pretty much covered what I didn't like about Palpatine. He feels forced, it doesn't make sense. But there's one idea I liked with Palpatine, which is that he has this whole, audience cheering him on when he's doing all his evil deeds in his little throne room. And I think it's all a fake, something fake created by him. But I liked the idea because it's almost like the Senate, cheering him on from the prequels. Like the Senate, was there. That was the one idea I kind of liked about, him creating his own Senate that's watching him. I actually liked that idea. That was the only thing I really liked about Palpatine in this movie. And speaking of Palpatine, let's talk about Rey's heritage. She is the granddaughter of Palpatine. And I didn't really mind this retcon. It didn't bother me too much because it does stick with what was happened in The Force Awakens, in The Last Jedi, with her finding out their parents are nobody. And they are, as Obi-Wan would say, it's not entirely a lie. What I told you was true from a certain point of view. It still works to me, because it doesn't change the fact that she didn't come from anything, but it does reveal that Palpatine is her grandfather, but she does deny that and creates her own destiny, which I like, because they stick with that theme to the very end, where it is revealed that she created her own yellow-bladed lightsaber, and that was pretty sweet. I'm not going to deny that. But yeah, I liked that part at the end was pretty cool. But I don't really know how she knew to go to Tatooine. Like, the movie ends and she goes to Tatooine, at the Lars homestead where Luke used to live, like Luke's old home. She buries Luke and Leia's lightsaber because it is revealed that Leia was a Jedi. They kind of addressed that in Return of the Jedi way back in 1983, where, she could have been a Jedi, but she denied it. So I thought that was the end of that. I thought that her training to become a Jedi, that was the end of it. But maybe they're saying that during that time, she was training to become a Jedi, and then she decided not to be. I don't know, because it looked like young Mark Hamill and young Carrie Fisher, recreated with, the de-aging effect that Marvel is so famous for using. So, that didn't really bother me that much. I could get behind that. But anyway, she buries their lightsabers and ignites her own yellow-bladed lightsaber that she apparently created at some point. And there's, this lady there in the desert, and she's like, there hasn't been anyone for so long, what's your name? And she's like, Rey. And then she looks off into the distance, and there's Luke and Leia, and they're like, hey, and she's like, Rey Skywalker, and it was kind of stupid. It was just like, oh, I'm Rey Skywalker. It was like, okay. The one idea I do like from that is, once again, creating your own destiny, and she has her lightsaber, that means she's creating her own unique destiny. And then also with the idea of her basically combining the main foe of the Skywalker, bloodline, and the Skywalker bloodline itself. Rey Palpatine Skywalker. That's a cool idea. I like that idea. That, she's the combination of both, but does decide to go to the good side. I like that idea. So that's me talking about the Rey Palpatine Skywalker thing. I thought that was okay, the idea of Palpatine being her grandfather. Once again, it feels rushed, and they didn't really have enough time. But overall, I thought that idea was okay. I thought it stuck well enough with what they set up in Force Awakens, and doesn't depart too far from what they established in The Last Jedi. What else do we have to talk about? We're going to talk about the new characters. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the new characters. Jannah is this new character that meets Finn, and she's like, oh, I was in a troop of stormtroopers, and we all defected. And the way she describes it is literally exactly like Finn. We had to kill a bunch of villagers at one point. And it's literally the exact same scenario as Finn. I was like, could you just come up with something a little different than that. It just was kind of stupid, and like I probably cared about her more than Zori Bliss, but because Zori Bliss is more of just a plot device, but her character, like I kind of cared about her, but I this late in the game, I can't care about this new character introduced randomly, and then that she kind of connects to Lando a little bit. Lando, I didn't mind. He didn't take away from the film, and he didn't really add to the film. I thought he was fine. I thought it was cool to see him back. It added for a cool moment where the cavalry came in to help Poe at the end, and that was a nice character moment for Poe. I liked that part when, the cavalry comes in, and that goes back to what Zori Bliss was saying to Finn, or Poe earlier in the movie. But yeah, and then at the end, Lando is sitting down, and he turns to Gianna, and he's like, hey, who are you? What's your backstory? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, let's find out. So I don't know if they're trying to say that Lando's like her dad or something, or if they're going to go off on their own adventure. That was a very weird moment. I don't know what they were trying to go for there. It was very confusing. Then we're going to talk about Zori Bliss. I didn't like that character. Like, they go there. She hates Poe because they had an old romance, supposedly. Like, she's an old flame of Poe. And then Rey beats her up in 2 seconds, and then she's like, oh, I think you're cool. And then is immediately their friend, and is immediately Poe's friend again. That made no sense. It was a sudden character change. That once again, if J.J. Abrams was given enough time to make a full trilogy of films, or make a second and third film of his own trilogy, this character would have probably been introduced into the second episode of his trilogy, and then we could have had a more natural growth for that character. But since, that character was introduced so late in the game, once again, I can't care about her, and then she had this stupid moment where she's like, oh, I've got this First Order coin that you can get onto any ship of the First Order, and funnily enough, right at this point in the plot, you need this to get onto the ship to rescue Chewie. It was just very corny. I didn't like that at all. It was just like, oh, her character just basically existed as a plot device, and that didn't work for me too well. R2-D2 did what he's done in all the past movies of the sequel trilogy. He sits around and, does a few things, but not really much. He just kind of, saves the day at the end by, bringing 3PO's memories back, which I didn't like. BB-8 was there. He didn't really do anything major. He really didn't do much at all. C-3PO I thought was really funny. He added for some of the funniest parts in the movie that I really enjoyed. I thought he was really funny. And it's like, they should have stuck with 3PO losing his memories. It was like, I'm taking one last look, sir, at my friends. And then, I'm sorry, that sounded like Dobby. But then he just, then it's like, R2 is just like, blah, 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 and then just, fixes his memories, and he remembers everybody. And it's like, it was meant as a sad thing, but then after that, when he doesn't remember them, it's almost treated as a comedic thing, and it's like, no, this shouldn't be comedic if you're trying to go for it, because this is supposed to be sad. He doesn't remember his friends. This is supposed to be sad, but they're treating it as a comedic thing. It's so confused as to what, he was funny in the first half of the movie, and then after the memory thing, the whole direction they were trying to go with that character was just very confused to me and didn't work very well. Poe I don't have much to say about. The moment where the cavalry comes in the final battle was a good character moment, and he was entertaining, and I like Oscar Isaac quite a bit. But he didn't really add much. He probably had more to offer than Finn, who in this movie was just nothing to me. I wanted a good excuse as to why he didn't die, or as to why he didn't die in The Last Jedi, because, Rose just flies in and saves him in The Last Jedi. I think if he had died there, it would have been an effective emotional moment in that film, and there isn't really good excuse given in this film as to why he didn't die there. He just kind of didn't die, and he's here, and it feels like Rian Johnson, if J.J. Abrams had helmed 2 more of the films in this trilogy, and not just this one, if he'd helmed the second and third film, I can tell they're going for Finn being Force sensitive. There's multiple moments in the film where he senses either Ren or Rey, and it's just like, okay, I get what you're going for, but he didn't have enough time, and he's like, I have a secret to tell you, Rey. And then he never tells her. It's like, okay. Also, they try to make Janna his new girlfriend, and then they try to make Rose his girlfriend, and they try to make Rey his girlfriend. It's like, can you hook up someone with Finn definitively? Who are you going for? But then Rey, they try to hook up with Kylo Ren, but spoiler alert, this is already a full spoiler review, he dies at the end. Which I guess will lead me into Kylo Ren. We're going to talk about Kylo Ren. He was the one consistent character throughout this trilogy. and I was happy with what they did in this movie. Before I saw it, I was like, no, definitively Last Jedi. They made him definitively the villain, and there's no turning back. He is true evil, and he will not change. What they did with him in this film, I really was convinced by his change. And, Han walking up. There are things in this movie that are, like, kind of confusing as to, like, so basically, there's this whole thing. So, Rey and Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo, are having... I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the plot, because everyone's already talked about that, and I already talked in my initial review how I didn't mind the plot being, a MacGuffin plot, and just a simple plot line. But basically, so Rey and Kylo Ren are having this battle, and on, like, the ruins of the Death Star. And then Leia randomly gets up at the Resistance base, and then Maz Kanata's there, and she just basically just says to the characters there at the Resistance base, she's just like, Leia knows what she must do. She will go and sit down and try to talk to Ben and use up all of her energy. And it's like, thank you for explaining to me what's happening. I couldn't have figured that out myself. But Leia, like, lies down in her bed, and then Kylo Ren's fighting Rey, and he's almost beaten her. And then Leia just says, Ben. And then, like, that distracts Kylo Ren. Rey grabs his lightsaber and stabs him. And then, it was very confusing to me, because I didn't know what they were going for. Like, okay, so she stabs Ben, and then he sits down, and then as he gets stabbed, Leia's hand falls. And they're trying to say that she dies there, as Ben dies. But Leia doesn't die there, because at the end of the movie, Ben climbs out of the pit that Palpatine threw him in, heals Rey, and then after they kiss, he, like, falls over and dies, and then he disappears. But then it shows Leia's blanket, hitting the bed, and her body disappearing. So are they trying to say that throughout the whole movie, she, like, passed her energy into him, and, like, that their fates were intertwined, and then when Ben died, so did she? I don't know what they're trying to go for there. Let me know if you could like get any, like, confirmed or, like, any, like, legitimate reasoning as to what was going on there, because they didn't really give me a reason or an explanation as to what the heck was going on there. But Rey heals Ben, because that's the thing she can do now. Rey can just magically heal people. Like, why don't you just go heal Padme, I guess? But she heals Ben, and then she's like, yeah, I wanted to take your hand, but not as Kylo Ren, as Ben Solo. And then Kylo Ren is standing there, and he's all sad. And then Han appears to him. And it's kind of like a cheap, like, oh, by the way, it's Han, but it's not a Force ghost, it's just a memory. Because he's just like, you're a memory. And it's like, oh, okay, I get what you're going for, he's a memory. But he talks to him, and it's basically the same scene from Force Awakens, but it doesn't end. It's like he lifts up the lightsaber, and he holds his hand, and rather than igniting the lightsaber this time, he turns around and throws it over the cliff. Which is kind of stupid, because I was like, okay, but like, don't you think if you're gonna go fight Palpatine next, you might need the lightsaber still? Like, you could still use that, because when he goes there, he gets beaten up by the Knights of Ren, and for a little while, and it's like, okay. But he does get a lightsaber eventually in the final battle, but I like that. I thought that was cool. I really liked that sequence where, he accepts that. Leia's death, I felt, was kind of like, they did the best they could with Carrie Fisher. Like, obviously, rest in peace to her. It's very upsetting and tragic what happened to Carrie Fisher. But the way they executed that just felt kind of stupid to me. Like, her death, like, they were like, rest, sweet princess, and it was like, the camera pans away, and it was like, do, and I was like, okay, yeah, good, just keep the plot going. It just kind of slowed down too much for me there. It just didn't work very well for me. But the moment that really actually made me cry fully, and what I think is probably the best scene in the movie, is where, they get back, and they get off the plane, and then it's revealed to them that, Leia's dead, and then Chewie just, like, cries out in the, Chewbacca, he just cries out in this, like, it's probably the most agonizing scream, or, like, cry that we've heard from Chewbacca in the entire series, and it was heartbreaking to see, because you realize that he's lost all his friends over the course of this trilogy. And just to hear that, the last, like, living member of his, circle of friends, his family, is gone. It's crushing to see, and it was brilliantly acted, by whatever his name is, Junius Suetamo, as, like, this, like, fully motion capture character. It was, like, I cried. Like, that was upsetting to me. seeing Chewie like that. But, Lando shows up, and, Lando and Chewie are together, and that was good. But that moment just really hit me hard, Chewie there. Another thing, I was talking about the Knights of Ren. They just show up in this movie from The Force Awakens, and they're just there for no reason, and they just stand around and follow them, and, the music is like, bomb, bomb, and it's supposed to be dramatic, and they were just in the movie for no reason. They just stood around, and they never did anything until Kylo Ren went there, and they beat him up, and like I say, it was stupid that he threw his lightsaber off the cliff. It's you probably might need that, but then, Rey, lets go of the lightsaber, and then Kylo grabs, and then he walks in, and then Palpatine's there, and then they're we're gonna fight you, and what I didn't understand was Rey's there, and Palpatine is kill me now, and my spirit will pass into you, and my family was telling me, oh, it's just because, it would have been a part of the ritual, but the thing is, at the end of the movie, she does kill Palpatine. He shoots his lightning, and it's a total Thanos and Tony Stark moment. And in case you're wondering, I don't love Endgame. I think Endgame did this way better. This moment just felt really dumb. He's I am all the Sith. And then Rey is and I am all the Jedi. And then she, reflects the lightning, and it was just oh my god. And then, Palpatine blows up, supposedly he's actually dead this time. If they resurrect him again, it's gonna be really stupid. It's his fingers. It's some rotting Palpatine. He's a rotting zombie. I didn't care about that. But, Kylo Ren, getting out of the pit, or Ben, walking over to her, and then, healing her, and, crying over her body, and then, being okay, I know what I have to do. And then healing her, and then, they get up, and she's just Ben. And then they kiss, and I hated that. It was why do you have to have them kiss? It was oh god. That was stupid. It was if you had just had her say Ben, and just have him and then he's laughing for a second, and if you just had that one joyful moment of her calling him Ben, and then him laughing joyfully, and then him falling and dying, that would have been great. But they have to have them kiss, and I was oh, stupid. Every moment this movie has where I'm excited to see what's happening, and I love a moment, there's always another moment that follows that is just you didn't need to do that. And that's one of my problems with that scene, is it would have been a perfect scene, but they kiss, and it's you didn't have to do that. Why did you do that? It just annoyed me, Yeah, that was really annoying to me and irritating. And then, what else we're gonna talk about? Yeah, I didn't like the Knights of Ren. They were stupid. They didn't need to be in the movie. Oh, General Hux is disappointing. General Hux, is this spy, and he's been built up as this character throughout the entire trilogy, and this new general who apparently worked for Palpatine in the Clone Wars or something, he just shoots Hux, and he's dead. It's okay, that's it for Hux. He's done. He's out of the franchise. I was whoa, that's kind of sudden. I guess Hux is dead. But yeah, it's I know I've been, sounding like I dislike the movie. And I don't really. The more and more I think about it, I like it less. But Star Wars is a special thing. And, I'm not gonna pretend, this movie didn't, have me gripped at points. I enjoyed the story. But once it got into that final battle, I couldn't care anymore. It fell apart to me. It was cool when the Jedi were cheering on Rey, and she stood up, and it was all the voices, I heard Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu, and all that, that was cool. And, I think Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, even I think they edited a line from Alec Guinness in there. That's great stuff. But then another thing I didn't like, I don't like the portrayal of Force Ghosts. Rey goes to the Act 2, and Luke just shows up as a Force Ghost and grabs the lightsaber, and it feels like if you had Luke survive Last Jedi and she goes back and it's just normal Luke, it wouldn't have changed a thing. And that's my problem with the Force Ghosts now. It just feels like they're an extension of the characters, and they aren't actually dead. It's just these characters aren't actually dead. They're just Force Ghosts now, and Force Ghosts are basically just a glowy blue version of the human. It's Luke, he's back, he's acting the exact same way, he can lift the X-Wing, he can do all of it. Why not have Rey lift the X-Wing out of the water? That would have worked for me. But instead it's Force Ghost Luke, and then now Force Ghosts can interact with objects. Luke can grab the lightsaber, and Yoda can, summon lightning with his finger in The Last Jedi. I don't like Force Ghosts anymore. It used to be this cool spiritual thing of the Jedi, and now it's they're just blue glowing humans. I don't like that idea anymore. of the Force ghosts. But, getting back to what I was saying is, Star Wars is always a special thing. And this movie isn't great. It's the worst of this trilogy. And it's probably one of the worst Star Wars movies that we've had in a while. But I still enjoyed myself. And, that's really the key. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. I loved Kylo Ren's arc. I, for the most part, enjoyed Rey. I enjoyed C-3PO. And I enjoyed a lot of the humorous moments. It had probably some of the best humor of the trilogy. But, there are bad things in it, and I'm not going to deny that. And, my dad said that his friend saw Last Jedi with his kids, and he's my dad respects this guy a lot, and he said that he took his 13 and 14-year-old kids to see it, and they wanted to see it again, and they loved it. And that's what Star Wars is all about to me. It's not about what I think, and it's not about, whatever, the problems with the execution or whatever. If someone loves something, and if someone enjoyed this film, then I'm happy about that. I'm happy that someone was able to experience something different than what I did. And not all of these things necessarily bother me, but it is a flawed movie to me, and my job on this channel is to give you my opinionated review, as well as, pointing out flaws and things that were annoying to me, and, I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I also enjoy the experience of watching it. And I'm not going to pretend that I didn't have a fun time at the movies of this movie. I saw it with my family, which have come home for Christmas, and I don't usually see them, I don't see them a lot, other than at Christmas time. So, having the whole family there seeing it, that was special. But I'm not going to say that it was a perfect movie. So, like I say, I'm not going to change my rating from the original review. I give it a B+, I give it a B- or a C+, somewhere around that range. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, and I think I like it more than Endgame. I think I definitely like it more than Endgame. I didn't touch on everything in this review because I already touched on some things in my non-spoiler review. If you want to see some of the stuff I didn't touch on in this review, go to my non-spoiler review. Thank you if you stuck throughout the entire review. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day and a Merry Christmas. Take care.